What if a map line in the Arctic could redraw alliances while a leaf streak snaps in Utah and Kyle Lowry gets the curtain call he and Toronto wanted? Ottawa weather quick hit. A high around 4 degrees Celsius and a low near -18 with snow. Let's start local. A serious head-on crash on Prince of Wales Drive has left a man in his 80s critically injured. 3 adults are being treated for injuries. Provincial police are also probing a 3-vehicle collision on Highway 400 near Bradford that seriously injured an off-duty York Regional Police officer and caused major closures. And in Renfrew County, heartbreaking news: a 5-year-old child died after an ATV crashed into a tree on private property. The child was wearing a helmet. OPP are asking anyone with dashcam footage or who witnessed these incidents to contact investigators. At the Canadian Tire Centre, the Senators' Hockey Talks night put mental health front and center, using the team's platform to encourage conversations and connect fans with resources. It's an important reminder that the game can open doors to support that many might not otherwise seek. To the Arctic, where geopolitics and climate are colliding, NATO, which historically paid limited attention to the region, is now in talks about Arctic security, and reports suggest European countries like the UK and Germany are discussing a potential military presence in Greenland. This comes amid renewed U.S. interest in controlling Greenland for national security. Inuit advocacy groups and Greenlanders in Canada are pushing back hard against any designs that resemble colonization, emphasizing self-determination. A former Canadian military commander is warning that any U.S. move to seize Greenland could unravel NATO and the post-Second World War security architecture. Despite the tensions, organizers of the Arctic Winter Games say the event is proceeding as planned. The stakes here aren't just strategic. As the Arctic warms, new sea routes and resource access are transforming the map and the playbook. Trade tensions are rising too. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in China for the first time since 2017, trying to stabilize trade ties just as pressure builds to consider lifting tariffs on some Chinese goods. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is firmly against easing tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, warning that low-cost imports could undercut jobs in Ontario and across the Midwest. Cue U.S. President Donald Trump calling the Canada-US-Mexico agreement irrelevant, insisting the U.S. doesn't need Canadian products, even as the auto sector's North American supply chains remain deeply intertwined. Canada faces a compulsory CUSMA review this year, and rhetoric like this adds uncertainty for businesses trying to plan investments and hiring. On the climate and industry front, 3 of Canada's top auto executives, from Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, are urging the federal government to clarify or repeal the electric vehicle sales mandate. The current framework pushes toward 20% zero-emission vehicle sales on the way to 100% by 2035. But with regulations delayed to 2026 and a review pending, the companies say they're facing extraordinary compliance costs and can't make critical production and credit decisions. It's the core dilemma: how to keep Canada's climate targets credible while giving manufacturers a runway that won't send production elsewhere. There's also a push for transparency in public spending. Greenpeace says Domtar has received roughly $200 million in government funding without publicly detailing how it will be used or how Canada's forests will be protected. The group wants any funding tied to safeguards for nature and Indigenous rights. Meanwhile, Quebec's public contract watchdog found that the SAAQ didn't ensure fair competition on its SAAQ CUD project, giving SAP Canada an unfair advantage and splitting contracts to dodge stricter oversight. The broader message is clear. When public money's on the table, the process has to be fair and transparent. A quick note on hemispheric oil politics with potential spillover for Canada-US trade. Some reports allege the U.S. has attacked oil-rich Venezuela and captured President Nicolas Maduro. Those claims are extraordinary and require careful verification. What's driving the conversation is the idea that U.S. access to Venezuela's heavy crude, similar to Canadian blends, could reduce American reliance on Canadian supply. But Venezuela's oil sector is in rough shape after years of underinvestment and sanctions, which raises big risks for companies contemplating a return. Even if Washington were to align closely with industry to open those taps, Timelines and technical hurdles mean it's not a switch you flip overnight. And that uncertainty loops back into Customer-era energy calculus. Sports time. The Maple Leafs extended their point streak to 10 with a gritty overtime win against Colorado, enough to make some analysts rethink where Toronto stands in the East. Then Utah slammed the brakes. The Mammoth beat the Leafs 6-1, ending both the 4-game win streak and the 10-game point streak. Dylan Genther scored twice and added an assist, notching the fastest back-to-back goals in Mammoth franchise history. Karel Vejmelka made 19 saves for his league-leading 21st win. Kalle Järnkrok had the lone goal for Toronto, and Matthias Micheli returned to Utah ice for the first time since being traded to the Leafs. One loss doesn't erase a month of solid hockey, but it's a reminder the margin for error is thin when the schedule bites. In Toronto basketball, a moment for the memory vault. Kyle Lowry, the floor general of the Raptors' 2019 championship run, likely made his final on-court appearance in the city. He wasn't sure he'd get the chance. It depended on the 76ers having a comfortable lead. The crowd made sure the moment happened. With chants ringing and the game in hand, Nick Nurse subbed Lowry in for the closing minutes. He didn't score, but that wasn't the point. Lowry called it meaningful, thanking the fans and his teammates for creating the space to say goodbye on the floor where he did so much. For Raptors fans across Ontario, including plenty here in Ottawa, it was the right kind of send-off. Before we go, a few quick reminders. If you witnessed any of the crashes we mentioned or have dashcam footage, please contact OPP. And if Hockey Talks Night sparked a conversation for you, check in with a friend or a teammate. Those small check-ins matter. That's it for today. We'll keep tracking Arctic security, the customer review, and what Ottawa's automakers and policymakers decide on the EV mandate. Follow, rate, and share if you find this useful.